My wife Jessica and I had been married for nearly 10 years. We met in college, and it was one of those whirlwind romances. She was studying business, and I was majoring in economics. We both dreamed of owning a business together someday. Fast forward a few years, we did just that. We opened a small but successful jewelry store in the heart of the city. Life seemed perfect, at least on the surface. We were both in our early 30s, and our store was thriving. We had a few employees, but our most trusted one was John, our security guard. He was a quiet man in his late 40s, always diligent and polite. I never thought much about him beyond his role at the store. He was just another part of the background that made our business run smoothly. Over the past few months, though, I started to notice subtle changes in Jessica's behavior. She became more secretive, often taking phone calls in another room and texting late into the night. When I asked her about it, she brushed it off, saying it was just business-related. I wanted to believe her, but a nagging doubt began to grow inside me. One afternoon, I decided to drop by the store unexpectedly. I had left some important documents in the office and needed them for a meeting later that day. As I approached the store, I noticed something odd. Jessica and John were standing very close to each other, their heads bent in a serious conversation. They quickly separated when they saw me, and Jessica gave me a strained smile. "Hey, darling, what brings you here?" she asked, her voice slightly too bright. "I just needed to grab some papers," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, of course," she said, but her eyes darted nervously to John, who avoided my gaze. I went to the office and retrieved the documents, my mind racing. Something was definitely off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. That night, Jessica was unusually affectionate, almost as if she were trying to make up for something. It made me even more suspicious. A few nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night to find Jessica missing from our bed. I got up and found her in the living room, whispering urgently into her phone. When she saw me, she quickly ended the call and looked up, startled. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yeah, something like that," I replied, eyeing her suspiciously. "Who are you talking to?" "Just a friend," she said too quickly. "It's nothing important." But I wasn't convinced. Her behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, and my gut told me something was seriously wrong. I decided to investigate further. I started paying closer attention to Jessica's actions. I checked her phone whenever I could, but she was always careful to delete her messages and call history. One day while she was in the shower, I managed to unlock her phone and saw a recent call to John. My heart sank. Why would she need to talk to him so late at night? Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to follow her the next day. Jessica said she was meeting a friend for lunch, but I had a feeling she was lying. I discreetly followed her from a distance. Instead of going to a cafe, she headed to a secluded park on the outskirts of town. There, under a large oak tree, stood John. They embraced, and my worst fears were confirmed. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I couldn't believe this was happening. The sight of Jessica and John embracing under that oak tree left me numb. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I could barely process the betrayal. I stood there hidden behind a bush, trying to control my emotions. My mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? What did I do wrong? What was I going to do now? I needed to confront Jessica, but I didn't want to do it without solid evidence. If I was going to accuse her of infidelity, I needed undeniable proof. I decided to hire a private investigator. It felt extreme, but I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal. The next morning, I contacted a reputable private investigator named Frank. I explained my situation, and he agreed to take the case. He assured me that he would get to the bottom of it and provide me with all the evidence I needed. It was a relief to have someone on my side, someone who could uncover the truth. For the next week, Frank followed Jessica and John, taking photos and documenting their interactions. Each day, I anxiously awaited his updates, hoping for some sign that I was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation. But the truth was undeniable. Frank captured photos of them meeting in secret, holding hands, and even kissing. It was clear that their relationship was far more than just professional. One evening, Frank handed me a folder full of evidence. As I looked through the photos, my hands trembled with rage and sorrow. The images were like daggers to my heart, each one cutting deeper than the last. There was no denying it now. Jessica was having an affair with John. That night I barely slept. My mind was consumed with thoughts of their betrayal and what I should do next. By morning I had decided. I would confront Jessica and John at the store where they couldn't escape the truth. I needed them to see the pain they had caused, to face the consequences of their actions. The confrontation I had planned was no longer enough. I wanted to catch them in the act, to ensure there was no room for denial or excuses. I wanted Jessica to see just how deeply she had hurt me. With Frank's help, I set up surveillance cameras in our home. I felt sick to my stomach doing it, but I needed to know the full extent of her betrayal. The next few days were torture. I pretended everything was normal, going through the motions of daily life while my heart was breaking. Jessica continued her charade, acting like the loving wife when she was home. But I knew better now. I watched the surveillance footage religiously, waiting for the moment that would confirm everything. It didn't take long. One afternoon, while I was supposedly at a business meeting, Jessica invited John over. My heart pounded as I watched the footage from the hidden cameras. They started in the living room, sitting close and talking in hushed tones. The conversation soon turned intimate, their bodies gravitating toward each other. I couldn't watch anymore. I grabbed my car keys and drove home, my mind a whirlwind of rage and sorrow. I even drove through a red light once. It's good that there were no pedestrians. When I arrived, I parked a block away to avoid alerting them. I crept up to the house, my heart pounding in my chest. Through the front window, I could see them moving toward the bedroom, their hands all over each other. Summoning every ounce of courage, I unlocked the front door as quietly as possible and stepped inside. The sounds of their laughter and whispered words of passion reached my ears, fueling my anger. I moved silently toward the bedroom, the reality of what I was about to witness hitting me like a ton of bricks. As I reached the bedroom door, I paused. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open, and the sight before me shattered my world. There, tangled in the sheets of our bed, were Jessica and John. Their eyes widened in shock and horror as they saw me standing there. Jessica scrambled to cover herself, her face pale. "Mike!" she gasped, her voice trembling. "It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. "How can you even say that?" John jumped up, grabbing his clothes and trying to flee. "I'm so sorry, man," he stammered. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my house." John bolted, leaving Jessica and me alone in the wreckage of our marriage. She started to cry, reaching out to me, but I recoiled in disgust. "How long?" I demanded. "How long has this been going on?" She sobbed, unable to meet my eyes. "A few months," she whispered. "It was a mistake, Mike. I never meant for this to happen." "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice shaking with rage. "You've been lying to me, betraying me, and you call it a mistake." "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'm so sorry." Her apologies meant nothing to me. The woman I had loved and trusted had torn my heart to pieces. I couldn't stand to be in the same room as her anymore. "Pack your things," I said coldly. "I want you out of this house by tonight." "Please, Mike," she begged. "Let's talk about this. We can work through it." "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, my voice icy. "You made your choice, Jessica. Now you have to live with it." With that, I turned and walked out, leaving her sobbing on the bed. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My world had been turned upside down, and I needed to figure out how to move forward without her. As I left the house, the weight of what had just happened bore down on me like an anchor. I walked aimlessly through the neighborhood, my mind spinning. Jessica's betrayal felt like a knife twisting in my heart. How could she do this to me? To us? I needed to clear my head to figure out what my next steps would be. I found myself at a small park nearby and sat on a bench, staring blankly at the playground. Children were laughing and playing, their carefree joy a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I took out my phone and called Frank. He answered on the second ring. "Mike, what's going on?" he asked, sensing the urgency in my voice. "I caught them," I said, my voice cracking. "In our bed." There was a pause. "I see. What do you need me to do?" I need a divorce lawyer, I replied, my voice steadying with resolve. Someone good, and I need to make sure Jessica can't take everything from me. I'll set up a meeting for you, Frank said. Hang in there, buddy, you're going to get through this. After hanging up, I sat there for a while longer, trying to come to terms with what my life had become. Eventually, I knew I had to go back and face Jessica. I needed to make sure she was really leaving and that she understood there was no chance of reconciliation. When I returned home, Jessica was packing her things, her eyes red from crying. She looked up as I entered, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "Mike, please," she began, but I cut her off. "Just pack," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "There's nothing left to say." She continued packing in silence, and I watched her, feeling a strange sense of detachment. This was the woman I had loved, the woman I had shared my dreams with. And now she was a stranger to me. As she finished and started to leave, she turned to me one last time. "I never meant to hurt you," she said softly. "I hope someday you can forgive me." I didn't respond, I just watched her walk out the door, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. The moment the door closed behind her, I collapsed onto the couch, the reality of my situation hitting me full force. I was alone now, left to pick up the pieces of a shattered life. After Jessica left, the silence in the house was deafening. The home we had built together now felt like a mausoleum of memories. Every corner, every piece of furniture, held echoes of a life I thought was secure. I wandered through the rooms aimlessly, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions, barely aware of what I was doing. I didn't go to work, I couldn't face the world outside just yet. My colleagues would eventually find out, and I wasn't ready for the sympathetic looks and awkward conversations. I spent most of my time in bed replaying the events over and over in my head. The sight of Jessica and John together haunted me, a constant reminder of my broken heart. I knew I needed help to navigate through this emotional storm. I reached out to my closest friend Dave, who had been my confidant since college. He arrived at my doorstep within an hour of my call, concern etched on his face. "Mike, you look terrible," Dave said, pulling me into a hug. "Let's get you out of this house. Fresh air will do you good." We went for a long walk, and I poured out everything to him, the affair, the confrontation, and the unbearable silence that followed. Dave listened patiently, offering words of comfort and wisdom. It felt good to have someone to talk to, someone who understood my pain. "You're going to get through this, Mike," Dave said as we sat on a bench overlooking the river. "It's going to be tough, but you're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong," I admitted, my voice trembling. "I feel like my world is falling apart." "It is," Dave agreed. "But that's when you start to rebuild, one step at a time." With Dave's support, I began to take those first steps. I forced myself to return to work, immersing myself in tasks to keep my mind occupied. It was difficult, but the routine provided a semblance of normalcy. My colleagues were understanding, giving me the space I needed while offering their support in subtle ways. Frank also came through for me. He arranged a meeting with one of the best divorce lawyers in the city, a no-nonsense woman named Karen. She had a reputation for being tough and fair, exactly what I needed. "Mike, I've reviewed the evidence Frank provided," Karen said as we sat in her office. "You have a strong case. Jessica's infidelity will work in your favor, especially with the detailed documentation we have. We'll fight to ensure you get a fair settlement." Hearing Karen's confidence gave me a glimmer of hope. We discussed the legal process, the division of assets, and my rights. It was overwhelming, but having a clear plan helped me feel more in control of my future. Back at home, I decided to clear out the remnants of Jessica's presence. I boxed up her belongings and moved them to the garage. It was painful, but it was a necessary step in reclaiming my space. The house felt emptier, but it was also a clean slate, a place where I could start to heal. One evening, as I was going through some old photo albums, I came across pictures of happier times, our wedding, vacations, and moments of laughter. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away, so I packed them into a box and stored it in the attic. Those memories were a part of my life, but they didn't define my future. Despite the progress, there were still moments of overwhelming sadness. Nights were the hardest. The bed felt too big and cold without Jessica. I often found myself staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face as I mourned the loss of the life I had envisioned. During one of those sleepless nights, I decided to write down my feelings. I started a journal, pouring my heart onto the pages. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, a way to process my emotions and find some semblance of clarity amidst the chaos. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, the pain began to dull. My daily routine became my anchor, providing a sense of stability amidst the emotional turbulence. I threw myself into work, determined to succeed despite the personal chaos. My colleagues were supportive, and Dave checked in regularly, ensuring I wasn't slipping back into despair. Karen, my lawyer, was a rock. She handled the legal proceedings with precision and tenacity. Jessica's attempts to manipulate the situation were met with firm resistance. Karen ensured I retained my fair share of our assets, including the jewelry store. It was a bittersweet victory, but it was a necessary step towards reclaiming my life. One day, as I was organizing some documents at the store, a familiar face walked in. It was Rachel, an old friend from college. We had lost touch over the years, but seeing her brought a sense of comfort and nostalgia. "Mike, is that you?" Rachel asked, her eyes widening in surprise. "Rachel, wow, it's been ages," I replied, genuinely pleased to see her. We spent the next hour catching up, reminiscing about old times and filling each other in on our lives. Rachel had become a successful event planner, traveling the world and organizing high-profile events. She was vibrant and full of life, her energy contagious. "I heard about what happened," Rachel said gently, her expression sympathetic. "I'm so sorry, Mike. You didn't deserve that." "Thanks, Rachel," I said, appreciating her sincerity. "It's been tough, but I'm getting through it." "You're stronger than you think," she said, giving me a reassuring smile. "Hey, how about we grab dinner sometime? It'd be great to catch up properly." I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I was ready to jump back into socializing, but something about Rachel's warmth and genuine concern made me agree. "I'd like that," I said, feeling a spark of something positive. Our dinner turned into a series of regular meetups. Rachel's presence was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that life could still be enjoyable. We talked about everything: our college days, our careers, and even our personal struggles. Rachel had her own share of heartbreaks, which made her empathetic and understanding. As we spent more time together, I began to feel a connection I hadn't felt in a long time. Rachel was supportive, encouraging, and always knew how to make me laugh. For the first time since Jessica's betrayal, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. One evening after a particularly enjoyable dinner, Rachel and I took a walk along the river. The city lights reflected off the water, creating a serene and beautiful backdrop. As we strolled, Rachel turned to me, her expression serious yet tender. "Mike, I know this might be too soon, but I need to say it," she began, her voice soft. "I've really enjoyed spending time with you. You've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush anything, but I think there's something special between us." Her words took me by surprise, but deep down I knew she was right. I felt the same way. "Rachel, I feel it too," I admitted, my heart pounding. "You've been a lifeline for me more than you know." We stood there looking at each other, the weight of our unspoken feelings hanging in the air. Slowly, Rachel stepped closer, her hand gently touching mine. It was a simple gesture, but it meant the world to me. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace and possibility. That night marked the beginning of something new. Rachel and I continued to spend time together, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. She was patient and understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was comfortable with. Her presence in my life was a beacon of hope, guiding me through the darkness. As the divorce proceedings neared their conclusion, I felt a sense of closure. Jessica and I reached a settlement, and I was finally free to move on with my life. It was a painful chapter, but one that I was ready to close. Rachel and I celebrated the end of my marriage with a quiet dinner at her place. We talked about the future, our hopes and dreams. It was a night filled with laughter, warmth, and a sense of newfound freedom. With the divorce finalized and Jessica out of my life, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. The chapter was closed, but the scars remained. Despite this, Rachel was there, her presence a constant source of comfort and encouragement. She was patient, never pushing me to move faster than I was ready for. Our relationship blossomed naturally, and I started to feel hopeful about the future again. I decided it was time to make some changes in my life. The first step was to give the house a makeover. It was full of memories, some good and some painful, and I needed a fresh start. Rachel helped me redecorate, turning the place into a reflection of my new beginning. We painted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and added new decor that made the house feel warm and inviting. The jewelry store also underwent changes. I poured my energy into expanding the business, introducing new product lines, and enhancing our marketing strategies. The work was a welcome distraction, and the positive feedback from customers was encouraging. The store became a thriving hub of activity, a testament to my determination to succeed despite the personal turmoil. One evening, as Rachel and I were unpacking a new shipment of jewelry, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mike, have you ever thought about expanding online?" she asked. "E-commerce is booming, and I think it could be a great opportunity for the store." I considered her suggestion, realizing she was right. "I hadn't thought about it, but it makes sense," I said, feeling a spark of excitement. "Let's do it." With Rachel's help, we launched an online store. It was a lot of work, but the results were worth it. Orders started pouring in from all over the country, and our business grew rapidly. It was exhilarating to see our hard work pay off, and it gave me a renewed sense of purpose. Meanwhile, my relationship with Rachel continued to deepen. We spent our weekends exploring new places, going on hikes, and enjoying each other's company. She introduced me to her friends and family, who welcomed me with open arms. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Rachel turned to me with a smile. "Mike, I've been thinking," she began, her eyes twinkling. "Why don't we take a trip together, just the two of us, a chance to relax and recharge?" I smiled, feeling a surge of warmth. "That sounds perfect," I said. "Where should we go?" Rachel's eyes lit up with excitement. "How about Italy? I've always wanted to go, and I think it would be amazing to explore it with you." The idea of a trip to Italy was thrilling. We spent the next few weeks planning our adventure, researching places to visit, and booking accommodations. It was a welcome distraction from the challenges of daily life, and it gave us something to look forward to. When the day of our departure finally arrived, we were both buzzing with excitement. As we boarded the plane, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. Despite everything that had happened, life was starting to look up again. Our trip to Italy was magical. We explored the historic streets of Rome, marveled at the art in Florence, and savored the delicious food and wine in Tuscany. Each day was an adventure filled with laughter, love, and unforgettable moments. Rachel and I grew even closer, our bond strengthening with each new experience. One evening, as we watched the sunset over the rolling hills of Tuscany, Rachel took my hand. "Mike, I love you," she said softly, her eyes shining with emotion. "I never thought I'd find someone who makes me feel this way." "I love you too, Rachel," I replied, my heart full. "You've brought so much joy into my life. I can't imagine it without you." Our trip to Italy was a turning point. It was a time of healing, growth, and new beginnings. When we returned home, I felt more at peace with myself and my past. I had found love again, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. Life with Rachel was everything I had hoped for, and more. Our relationship was a source of joy and stability, and the jewelry store was thriving thanks to our online expansion. It seemed like the worst was behind me, and I was finally moving forward. However, beneath the surface, a storm was brewing that I had no idea was about to hit. John, the ex-guardian and the man who had shattered my marriage, was not doing well. After our confrontation, Jessica lost the store and eventually stopped communicating with him. Without the store, John's job was gone too. He found himself without work, without Jessica, and consumed by bitterness and resentment. In his mind, I was the cause of all his problems, and he was determined to make me pay. One evening, as Rachel and I were closing up the store, I noticed a familiar figure lingering across the street. John was standing there, his eyes fixed on us with a cold, calculating gaze. A chill ran down my spine. I hadn't seen him since that fateful day, and I hoped he had moved on. Clearly, I was wrong. "Mike, is everything okay?" Rachel asked, noticing my sudden tension. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired, I guess. Let's get home." But the sight of John stayed with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was planning something. My suspicions were confirmed when I started receiving threatening messages and strange phone calls. The messages were vague but menacing, filled with cryptic warnings and accusations. I knew it was John. One night, as Rachel and I were preparing for bed, my phone buzzed with another anonymous message. "You took everything from me. Now it's my turn." Rachel saw the look on my face and immediately knew something was wrong. "Mike, what's going on?" I showed her the message, and her face paled. "It's him, isn't it, John?" I nodded, feeling a surge of anger and fear. "He blames me for everything. He's been sending these messages for weeks." "We need to go to the police," Rachel said firmly. "This is harassment." The next morning, we went to the police and filed a report. They took the threat seriously and assured us they would investigate. But despite their efforts, the messages continued, growing more frequent and more threatening. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at the store, Rachel and I returned home to find the front door ajar. My heart pounded as I pushed the door open, fearing the worst. Inside, the house was a mess. Furniture was overturned, drawers were emptied, and our belongings were strewn everywhere. On the wall, scrawled in red paint, were the words, "You won't escape this." Rachel clung to me, trembling. "Mike, this is getting out of hand. What are we going to do?" I called the police again, and they arrived quickly, taking photos and dusting for fingerprints. They assured us they would do everything they could to find John, but their words offered little comfort. The fear that had been simmering now boiled over. The next few days were a nightmare. We installed security cameras and changed the locks, but the sense of violation lingered. I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next attack. Rachel was just as shaken, her usual cheerfulness replaced by anxiety and fear. One night, as we sat in the living room trying to relax, the phone rang. I answered, expecting another anonymous threat, but it was John's voice on the other end. "Mike," he said, his voice cold and venomous, "you thought you could just walk away and leave me with nothing? You took everything from me, and now you'll know what that feels like." "John, this has to stop," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've already caused enough damage." "You haven't seen anything yet," he replied, his voice dripping with malice. "I'm just getting started." The line went dead, and I stared at the phone, my heart racing. I knew then that John was serious. He wasn't just trying to scare us. He was planning something far worse. The following day, I received an urgent call from the police. They had traced the latest threats and located John's hideout. He was arrested and taken into custody. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. The damage he had caused, the fear, the disruption to our lives, couldn't be undone so easily. Rachel and I tried to pick up the pieces, but the shadow of John's threats lingered. We installed even more security measures and took self-defense classes, determined to regain a sense of safety. The store, our home, and our lives had been tainted by his vendetta, but we refused to let it break us. In the weeks that followed, we focused on healing. The police assured us that John would face serious charges and likely a long prison sentence. It was a small comfort, but it allowed us to begin rebuilding our sense of security. Rachel remained my rock through it all. Her unwavering support and love gave me the strength to keep moving forward. Together, we vowed to leave the past behind and embrace the future with renewed determination. With John behind bars, a sense of normalcy began to return to our lives. The fear that had gripped us slowly started to fade, replaced by a determination to move forward. Rachel and I focused on the jewelry store, expanding our online presence and creating new designs that attracted even more customers. Business was booming, and our hard work was paying off. One evening, as we were closing up the store, Rachel turned to me with a smile. "Mike, I have an idea," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "What's that?" I asked, intrigued. "Let's open a second store," she said. "We've been so successful here, and I think it's time to expand. There's a great location downtown that's available." The idea of opening a second store was daunting but exciting. It felt like the perfect way to put the past behind us and focus on building a bright future together. "I love it," I said, smiling back. "Let's do it." Over the next few months, we threw ourselves into the new project. We found the perfect location, renovated the space, and hired a new team. The grand opening was a huge success, drawing in crowds of customers eager to see our latest creations. The new store quickly became just as successful as the original, and our business continued to grow. With the stores thriving, Rachel and I finally had the opportunity to take some time for ourselves. We planned a trip to the Caribbean, a chance to relax and celebrate our hard work and perseverance. The sun, the sea, and the time together were exactly what we needed. One evening as we walked along the beach, the sound of the waves and the warmth of the sand beneath our feet, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. Rachel looked at me, her eyes filled with love. "Mike, I never thought I'd find happiness like this," she said softly. "After everything we've been through, it feels like a dream." "I feel the same way," I replied, taking her hand. "I couldn't have gotten through any of it without you." We sat down on the sand watching the sunset. The sky was painted with vibrant hues of orange, pink, and purple, and it felt like the perfect symbol of our new beginning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I turned to Rachel, my heart full. "Rachel, there's something I've been wanting to ask you," I said, reaching into my pocket. I pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a beautiful engagement ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled Rachel's eyes as she looked at the ring, then back at me. "Yes, Mike," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I will." We embraced, our hearts overflowing with joy and love. It was a moment of pure happiness, a testament to our journey and the strength of our bond. The past was behind us and the future was bright. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, attended by close friends and family. It was a celebration of love, resilience, and new beginnings. As we exchanged vows, I felt a sense of gratitude for everything we had overcome and the life we were building together. Life settled into a new rhythm, filled with love, laughter, and purpose. The stores continued to thrive, and we found joy in our work and each other. Rachel's support and unwavering love were a constant source of strength, and I felt incredibly lucky to have her by my side. One evening, as we sat on the porch of our home, watching the stars, Rachel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mike, there's something I've been thinking about," she said. "What's that?" I asked, curious. "I want us to start a family," she said, her eyes shining with hope. "I know it's a big step, but I feel ready. What do you think?" The idea of starting a family had always been a dream of mine, and hearing Rachel express the same desire filled me with joy. "I think it's a wonderful idea," I said, smiling. "Let's do it." The next few months were filled with anticipation and excitement as we prepared for this new chapter in our lives. We talked about names, decorated a nursery, and imagined the joy of welcoming a child into our home. One sunny afternoon, Rachel surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. We were over the moon, filled with a sense of wonder and happiness. The months that followed were a whirlwind of preparations, doctor's appointments, and dreams of the future. When our baby girl was born, it was the most incredible moment of my life. Holding her in my arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and protection. Rachel and I looked at each other, tears of joy in our eyes, knowing that we had come full circle. Our family grew and our love deepened with each passing day. The challenges we had faced were now distant memories, replaced by the joy of parenthood and the strength of our bond. Life had come full circle, and we embraced each moment with gratitude and love. As I watched Rachel rocking our daughter to sleep one evening, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led us to this beautiful place. We had found love, resilience, and a new beginning. Life was finally in a good place. Rachel and I were thriving both personally and professionally, and our new baby girl brought us endless joy. It felt like the storm had passed, and we were basking in the calm that followed. But as life often goes, unexpected challenges have a way of surfacing just when you think everything is perfect. One evening, as we were settling in for a quiet night at home, my phone buzzed with a text message. I picked it up, not recognizing the number. The message was short and to the point. "Mike, it's Jessica. I need to talk. It's urgent." My stomach churned at the thought of hearing from Jessica again. The wounds of her betrayal had mostly healed, but scars remained. I debated ignoring the message, but something about its tone compelled me to respond. "What do you want, Jessica?" I texted back. Her reply came quickly. "It's about my sister. She has cancer and we need financial help for her treatment. Can we meet?" I sat back, feeling a mix of emotions. Jessica's sister, Sarah, had always been kind to me. She was a good person who didn't deserve such a cruel fate. But helping Jessica felt like reopening old wounds. I discussed it with Rachel, who listened thoughtfully. "Mike, this is a tough situation," Rachel said, her eyes full of understanding. "I know Jessica hurt you deeply, but Sarah is innocent in all of this. If you can help, maybe it's worth considering." Rachel's words resonated with me. Despite everything, I still believed in doing the right thing. I agreed to meet Jessica the next day at a local cafe. When I walked in, Jessica was already there, looking tired and stressed. She had lost weight and her face was lined with worry. Seeing her like this stirred up old memories, but I reminded myself that this wasn't about us. "Mike, thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything after everything I've done, but I'm desperate." "What happened to Sarah?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "She was diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer," Jessica explained, tears welling up in her eyes. "The doctors say she needs immediate treatment, but it's expensive. I don't have the resources to cover it all." I took a deep breath, weighing my options. "How much do you need?" Jessica hesitated, then handed me a piece of paper with the estimated costs. It was a substantial amount, but not beyond my means. I looked at her, seeing the genuine fear and desperation in her eyes. "Mike, I know I don't deserve your help," she said, her voice breaking. "But Sarah, she doesn't deserve this. Please, if you can find it in your heart to help her, I would be forever grateful." I thought about Sarah and how much she had always supported me during the good times. Despite my feelings towards Jessica, I couldn't let Sarah suffer because of our past. "I'll help," I said finally. "But this is for Sarah, not for you." Jessica's face crumpled with relief. "Thank you, Mike. You have no idea what this means to me." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and unease. I arranged to transfer the money directly to the hospital, ensuring it would be used for Sarah's treatment. It felt strange helping Jessica after everything, but it also felt like the right thing to do. As I left the cafe, I called Rachel to let her know what had happened. "You did the right thing, Mike," she said, her voice full of pride. "Sarah deserves a chance, and you gave her that." Helping Sarah brought a sense of closure I hadn't expected. It was as if by doing this one good deed, I was finally able to put the past behind me and fully embrace the future. Rachel and I continued to focus on our family and business, knowing that we had done something meaningful. Over the next few weeks, I received updates on Sarah's condition. The treatment was tough, but she was responding well. Jessica sent occasional messages thanking me and letting me know how Sarah was doing. I appreciated the updates but kept my distance, ensuring our interactions remained strictly about Sarah's health. One evening, as Rachel and I were playing with our daughter, my phone buzzed with a message from Jessica. "Sarah's surgery was successful. She's in remission. Thank you, Mike. You've given us hope." I showed the message to Rachel, who smiled and hugged me. "You did a good thing, Mike. I'm proud of you." As I held Rachel and our daughter, I realized that helping Sarah had not only given her a chance at life, but it also brought me a sense of peace. It was a reminder that even in the face of betrayal and pain, kindness and compassion could prevail. Life had settled into a comfortable routine once more. Our business was thriving, and the news of Sarah's remission had brought a sense of closure to the chapter involving Jessica. Rachel and I were focused on our future, raising our daughter and expanding our jewelry business. It seemed like we had finally left the past behind. But fate had other plans. One evening, after a particularly busy day at the store, Rachel and I were locking up when we noticed something off. There were a few men lingering outside, their faces partially hidden under hoodies and caps. A sense of unease settled over me, but I brushed it off, attributing it to my lingering paranoia from John's threats. Let's get home, I said, taking Rachel's hand. We've had a long day. As we drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I decided to drive back to the store later that night to check on things, just to be sure. Rachel protested, worried for my safety, but I assured her it was probably nothing. Around midnight, I returned to the store. As I approached, my heart sank. The front window was shattered, the glass scattered across the sidewalk. Inside, the store was a wreck. Display cases were smashed, jewelry strewn everywhere, and graffiti covered the walls. It was a scene of utter devastation. I called Rachel immediately, my voice shaking. "Rachel, the store's been trashed. Call the police. I need to check if anything's missing." The police arrived quickly, taking photos and collecting evidence. Rachel showed up not long after, her face pale with shock. "Mike, who would do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I have a pretty good idea," I replied, my mind racing. "John. Even from prison, he's found a way to get to us." The police took our statements and assured us they would investigate. As the night wore on, we tried to salvage what we could. It was a painful and exhausting process, but Rachel's unwavering support kept me going. The following days were a blur of insurance claims, repairs, and attempts to keep the business running. Our employees were shocked and scared, but they rallied together, helping us clean up and secure the store. Despite the setback, we were determined not to let this act of violence break us. The police investigation yielded little. They questioned known associates of John, but no one admitted to anything. John himself denied any involvement, maintaining his innocence from behind bars. Without solid evidence, the case stalled. One evening, as Rachel and I were discussing the situation, I couldn't hide my frustration. "It's obvious John is behind this, but we have no proof. It's like he's untouchable." Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We'll find a way, Mike. We can't let him win. We need to make the store even better than before. Show him that we're stronger than his hatred." We doubled down on security, installing new cameras, reinforced locks, and even hiring a night guard. The repairs were extensive, but our loyal customers and the community rallied around us, showing their support in countless ways. The outpouring of kindness and solidarity was overwhelming, giving us the strength to push forward. During this time, I received a call from Frank, the private investigator who had helped me before. "Mike, I heard about the store. I'm really sorry. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know." "Thanks, Frank," I replied, grateful for his offer. "We need to find proof that John is behind this. Without it, the police can't do much." Frank agreed to look into it, using his resources to dig deeper into John's connections. It was a long shot, but I hoped he could uncover something the police had missed. As we waited for any news, Rachel and I focused on rebuilding. We launched a marketing campaign to let customers know we were back in business, better and stronger than ever. Our hard work paid off, and soon the store was bustling with activity again. The support from the community was incredible, and it felt like a victory over John's attempts to destroy us. One afternoon, Frank called with an update. "Mike, I've been digging into John's associates. I can't find concrete proof linking them to the vandalism, but I did find something interesting. There's been a lot of communication between John and a few of his old friends, all through coded messages. It's enough to raise suspicion, but not enough to make an arrest." "Thanks, Frank," I said, feeling a mix of frustration and hope. "At least it's something. Keep digging and let me know if you find anything else." In the meantime, Rachel and I continued to focus on the positive. We expanded our online presence further, and our new store downtown was thriving. The incident had shaken us, but it had also strengthened our resolve to succeed. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching our daughter play in the yard, Rachel took my hand. "Mike, we've been through so much, but we've come out stronger each time. No matter what happens, I know we can face it together." I squeezed her hand, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "You're right. We've built something incredible, and no one can take that away from us." As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Despite the challenges, we had proven our resilience. John's attempts to break us had only made us stronger, and together we were unstoppable. Despite our efforts to restore normalcy, the shadow of John's vendetta still loomed over us. Rachel and I couldn't shake the feeling that he might strike again, even from behind bars. We lived with a heightened sense of vigilance, always prepared for the worst. But as time passed without any further incidents, we began to hope that perhaps John's reach had finally been curtailed. Our focus shifted to building our future and ensuring the security of our family and business. We continued to improve our security measures both at home and at the store. Our employees remained loyal and our customers continued to support us, bolstered by the strength and resilience we had shown in the face of adversity. One day, while sorting through some old documents at the store, I came across a folder with information about Jessica. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to find out what had happened to her after our paths had diverged so dramatically. I contacted a mutual acquaintance who still kept in touch with her. "Jessica's been through a lot," the acquaintance said. "After losing the store, she struggled financially and emotionally. She tried to rebuild her life, but it hasn't been easy. As for her involvement with John, well, that's still a mystery. No one knows for sure if she persuaded him to go after you or if he acted on his own." The news left me with mixed emotions. I felt a pang of sympathy for Jessica, but also a sense of frustration at the unresolved questions surrounding John's actions. Had she really been involved in his schemes, or was she just another victim of his manipulations? The truth remained elusive, and I had to accept that I might never know. As the months went by, Rachel and I continued to build our life together. Our daughter grew, filling our home with laughter and love. The stores flourished, and our online presence expanded, reaching customers far and wide. We celebrated milestones and faced challenges, always supporting each other through thick and thin. One evening, as we were closing up the store, Rachel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mike, do you ever worry that John might try something again?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I do, Rachel. But we can't live in fear forever. We've done everything we can to protect ourselves. At some point, we have to trust that he's lost his power over us." Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "You're right. We've come so far and we can't let him control our lives. We need to keep moving forward." We left the store hand in hand and walked into the cool evening air. The city lights twinkled around us, a reminder of the vibrant life we had built together. As we strolled through the streets, we talked about our plans for the future, the dreams we had yet to fulfill, and the adventures still ahead. Over time, the fear of John's retribution faded. We focused on the positive, cherishing the moments of joy and triumph that defined our lives. We continued to grow, both personally and professionally, always driven by the love and support we had for each other. One sunny afternoon, as we played in the park with our daughter, I realized just how far we had come. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also been filled with incredible moments of strength and resilience. We had faced our fears, overcome obstacles, and built a life filled with love and purpose. As I watched Rachel and our daughter laughing and playing, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Despite everything, we had found happiness and peace. The past no longer held us captive, and the future was ours to shape. In the end, John's attempts to destroy us had only made us stronger. We had emerged from the darkness, united and unbreakable. And as we continued to move forward, we knew that nothing could stand in the way of our love and determination. The future was bright, and together we were ready to face whatever came our way.